Welcome along to Donington Park, everybody. If you're just joining us for the first time this weekend, then you missed a cracking race earlier on from the 420Rs, but we've now got the 310Rs and the 270Rs heading out onto the circuit for their second round of the 2025 season. The first round took place yesterday in the Macmillan Motorsport Sevens Racing Championship. The Hyundai safety car bringing them round. The grid for this one is based on the finishing positions from yesterday, and it's a bumper grid. We're expecting 25 cars onto the grid for this one. Let me guide you through it. It is based on the finishing positions from yesterday. Car number 150, Paul Goldstein, sits there on pole position, and alongside is Ben Winrow. It's Stuart Bell and Craig Denman that line up on row number 2. The third row of the grid sees Oliver Smith line up alongside Caroline Everett, who's been a familiar face in this championship for a good number of years, and Paul Sethi has got Rob Good for company on row number 4. It's Phil Ingram and Simon Sharrock that sit there on row number 6. Scott Parker is joined by John Styring on the next row of the grid. Then on row number 7, it's Harry Eyre and Michael Curley, before we see Tim Steele and Fraser Riddington, who are there together on row number 8. Row 9 of the grid is Colin Loughlin and James Hall. And it's Ian Anderson, another long-time Caterham racer, that has Neville Sykes for company on row number 10. Amanda Anderson, who is directly behind her husband on the grid, lines up with David Tong on row number 11. The penultimate row of the grid is row number 12. James McLaughlin and Marciello Spada are on row number 12, and Stephen Lancaster is there on his own on row number 13. So these are the 310Rs and the 270Rs, so the 310Rs for Caterham Academy specification and Road Sport 310Rs from sort of 2008 to 2013 and 2014 onwards. And the 270Rs are again powered by similar engines, Ford Sigma engines, but are subtly different specification in terms of the power output of them. Paul Goldstein, the man who qualified on pole position, had a good run yesterday. It's still cold and breezy and blustery here at Donington Park, but he did claim the win by just 0.4 of a second, Paul, who did a good chunk of winning in various Caterham championships last year. Ben Winrow chased him hard to the line, and in what was a frantic race, we actually only had one non-finisher yesterday, Stephen Lancaster, so that's why he starts off the back of the grid, because he didn't finish at the wheel of his LFP Motorsport car yesterday. He dropped out just after half distance. We completed 12 laps. It was, I think, lap 8 in which he dropped out. So Paul Goldstein is in the gold-coloured car. The blue and the red car, the familiar colours of the Winrow family, shall we say, because we also see brother Jamie out racing, and sometimes they're in different cars, so it does vary. Jamie was out in the 420Rs earlier on, but Ben Winrow lines up in the CTS Motorsport car on the outside of the front row. Ben finished 4th in the championship last year. Then it's Stuart Bell's car, which is grey with sort of day-glow orange, and Craig Denman's car is joining him for company on the second row, which is grey with white and black, just to give you the colours of cars on the front few rows of the grid. So you can also see there Oliver Smith, which I think was one of the few cars I hadn't got a colour for. His is white and black on row number 3. So Paul Goldstein will be hoping to get on with it. The 310Rs and the 270Rs, as always, like all Caterhams, provide fantastic racing. The Sevens Racing Championship is very friendly paddock to be in. Lots of support from fellow drivers and Macmillan Motorsport, who do so much work. Andy Macmillan and the team based in Hinckley in Leicestershire behind the scenes. But we're about to get the race underway. 20-minute race. Car on the left of your screen is Paul Goldstein. He starts there on pole position, and when the lights go out, himself and Ben Winrow will look to see if they can get the jumper. Rolling start, lights go out now, and it looks like it is not too slow away from either front row member. Ben Winrow from the outside of the front row of the grid might just have his nose ahead, and does just cover off Paul Goldstein on the run towards Redgate Corner. So Ben Winrow leads the way. It's going to be Paul Goldstein in, not second, he might be down to 3rd place, because I think he's lost out there as they head onto the top of Hollywood and then down through the Craner curves. Yes, it does look as though he has indeed lost out. It's Craig Denman that's through, is it not, into 2nd place. Paul Goldstein is down into 3rd. That's Caroline Everett, I think, that's there in 4th place. Indeed it is. Could just spot the number 9 on it as it comes in towards the old hairpin. And everybody, I think, safely through the old hairpin as well. No sound of any gravel trap visitors that time through. Top 3 looking to just build a very slight gap between themselves and the rest of the chasing pack. Tail end of the field is still working its way through Schwantz Curve and up towards McLean's, as the front of the field is already up at Coppice Corner with a squeal of the Toyo are 888R tyres that they all run on. It's a treaded tyre, and already, in typical Caterham fashion, weave one way, weave the other, try and break the slipstream on the car behind. They'll end up 2 and 3 wide, 4 wide on occasions we saw yesterday in the race that wasn't televised for you. And they're side by side, even trying to get through the Fogarty S's as well. Well, Paul Sethi, I think, was brave there at the wheel of his green car, went wheel to wheel, and also had the confidence that the driver was going to give him room, and they all came out pointing in the right direction, with the top 3 still having made, at this stage, a mini breakaway. Caroline Everett, who was 4th, has dropped to 5th. I think I can see it's the green car of Paul Sethi that's there in 6th place. Yes, it is. And then everybody wants to be 7th at the moment, and just hanging on to 7th place. Looks as though it's Stuart Bell, who's lost places really, because he started 3rd, did Stuart Bell. So not been the best of first laps for the number 19 car. Up towards Redgate Corner they come. Paul Sethi is trying to sneak up the inside of Caroline Everett and steal a place away, and can't quite make it stick. Not on the way into the corner, but he might be able to do it on the way out, you know. Draws himself alongside. Caroline Everett is not going to make it easy. They still go wheel to wheel down through the Craner curves. And can Paul Sethi do it? No, he can't. Caroline Everett hangs on to the place. Onto the brakes. Through the old hairpin, pick up the curb, be careful not to run wide. It's one of a few corners where track limits are very, very well observed. There's also track sensors on the exit of the old hairpin, so if you run over them, then you know that the cars run wide, because race control will show you a photograph of your tyres beyond the curb line. And yesterday we didn't have too much of that in the Macmillan Motorsport 7s racing series, but some of the other support races here, there were track limits warnings issued and then subsequent penalties as well. So for the lead of the race, starting to get tasty now, because Ben Winrow coming under increasing pressure from Craig Denman, who has still got with him the pole sitter of Paul Goldstein, who in yesterday's race was sort of just making sure he was always where he needed to be. You don't need to be at the front of the race all of the time. As long as you are in that lead pack, then you can just position yourself where you want to be as the race wears on. And I think for the moment, Paul Goldstein is more than happy just to sit at the back, sit in the toe of those ahead, let them do all of the hard work, and then let the race come to him. It's a long race, it's a 20-minute race, and largely it's always the last lap where, or even the last final corner, where the win is decided. So Ben Winrow leads over the line. Again, he moves around to try and break the toe on Craig Denman's car. Paul Goldstein sits there in 3rd place. 4th place is going to be Oliver Smith in 4th place, but he's under attack from Paul Sethi, who is a bit too far back at Redgate Corner this time to gain another place. You can see the arms working overtime as well, as the tail end of the car was having to be kept in check with a little bit of opposite lock just to contain the oversteer in the car. So through the Craner curves, the man who set the fastest lap of the race is Paul Sethi so far. He's done a 1 minute 46.354. That is about 9/10 of a second shy of Paul Goldstein's fastest lap from yesterday's race. And as they now head up in towards the braking area from McLean's Corner, I thought for a moment there Craig Denman was going to pick up the lead of the race, but Ben Winrow has other ideas at the moment, and as soon as these 3 now are starting to squabble, just keep your eye on the 2 in the background. Paul Sethi and Oliver Smith are just starting to edge up ever more. So with Paul Sethi now up into 4th place, are we now going to have a change for the lead this time through? Is Ben Winrow going to relinquish the lead? No, he doesn't want to just as yet. Craig Denman has to be content and satisfied with 2nd still at the moment. He's a little bit slower out of the Fogarty S's, which offers up hope for Paul Goldstein if he wants to utilise the opportunity to get by. And he does, because he tries to outbrake on the outside, or is he going to try and get the undercut? Paul Sethi still wheel to wheel with Oliver Smith for what will be 4th and 5th place, but this little bit of a squabble between 1st, 2nd and 3rd all of a sudden now has allowed another 2 cars to join. It's not a trio, it's now a quintet that head for the lead round through the left-hander at Goddard's to complete what will be lap number 3 this time through, with 14.5 minutes remaining on the clock. Ben Winrow still continues to lead the way. Paul Goldstein now up into 2nd place. Paul Sethi might be through into 3rd here potentially, and that will mean that Craig Denman then has dropped into 4th place and is probably just taking a breather for the moment and ready to re-attack again in another few laps' time. The rest of the field, including all the 270s, all carved their way out of Redgate Corner. Just picking up on who's leading the 310 Clubman Cup at the moment for the less experienced drivers. That's down in 12th place, and that's number 53 that leads that. And that will be Tim Steele. And who's the leading car in the 270s at the moment? 270s is being led by car number 16 at the moment, which is James Hall. So he leads the 270Rs. And just behind him will be the second of the 270Rs, I think, which will be car number 104, which is Neville Sykes. And Neville Sykes, yeah, second in the 270s, but he's also the leading 270 Clubman car. So in other words, he's another driver. The Clubmans are those that have less experience than others around them. For the lead of the race, it's certainly hotting up, isn't it? Ben Winrow still leads the way, but now it's not Paul Goldstein that's there in second place. We've had a bit of a shuffle of the order again because Paul Goldstein is down into fourth. It's Paul Sethi that is now up into second place. Third is going to be Craig Denman. Paul Goldstein is fourth, and Oliver Smith will complete the top five the way things currently stand. And now that we've got five squabbling, keep your eye on the number 9 car, the blue car with the orange wheel arches that's in 6th place. That's Caroline Everett, and she's wanting to join the fun as well. And if she does, you can bet your bottom dollar that shortly afterwards, Stuart Bell, who had the poor first lap, the number 19 car, the silver car with the orange rollover hoop, he will want to get involved as well. Paul Sethi keen to try and take up the lead of the race here. He's absolutely right on the coattails of Ben Winrow, and Ben Winrow puts up a little bit of opposition. They run side by side down through the Craner Curves, but I think Paul Sethi is going to pick up the lead of the race here as they head down towards the old hairpin. No, he doesn't. Ben Winrow still, for the moment, hangs on to it, so it's 5 for the lead, but look at the 2 behind. Caroline Everett is on her way. Stuart Bell is wanting in on the fun as well. So with 12 minutes to go, it's still 5 for the lead and then a small gap, but it's surely going to be 7 for the lead potentially before too much longer. Ben Winrow really fast in towards McLean's corner. The car slides sideways, and Paul Sethi picks up the lead of the race as they head up towards Coppice Corner on lap number 5 this time through. So that's what our third, fourth different leader that we've had. Paul Goldstein running out potentially a little bit wide coming out of Coppice in 4th place, but no, he makes it stay between the white lines. However, in the background of the shot, somebody a long way off. I thought it might be Oliver Smith, but no, he is still there. It was another white car further back that had a fairly wild moment. We'll try and pick up on who that will be, because they'll certainly have lost some positions this time through. And the lead of the race was short-lived, wasn't it, for Paul Sethi, because he's now back down into second place already. Ben Winrow's back through. So the huge train of Caterhams heading in towards the braking area for Goddard's corner. Both Paul Sethi and Ben Winrow almost outbrake each other going into Goddard's that time through. The unloaded wheel just locking on both of them, slows both of them up, as they didn't really nail the apex either. So they'll all be back under pressure once more. It's still a train of 5 at the moment. Or is it? No, it's a train of 6, isn't it? Because Stuart Bell has managed to catch up now. Caroline Everett has dropped to 7th and is now coming under pressure from the next couple of cars behind her as well. And we are not really even halfway through this race as yet. New fastest lap of the race. Look all the way down into 13th position. Fraser Riddington, and the number 30 car sets the fastest lap of the race. 1 minute 45.441 from him, which is faster than Paul Goldstein managed yesterday, I think. Yes, it is. Faster by not much, by 27 thousandths of a second than yesterday's fastest lap. So 10 minutes to go, up towards Coppice Corner, lap number 6. Ben Winrow, Paul Sethi, Craig Denman, Oliver Smith, I think is he up into 4th position. Paul Goldstein down into 5th, is that? Or is that Stuart Bell? No, it's Stuart. Yes, it is, yeah. Oliver Smith up into 4th, Paul Goldstein 5th, and Stuart Bell there in 6th place. But every time you look, the order's largely shuffled, which is pretty much your average Sevens Racing Championship race. Brilliant cars to drive. Down and in towards the braking area for the Melbourne hairpin. Still continuing to lead the way is Ben Winrow, who has led more laps than anybody so far, but the important one, and the one that delivers the 50 championship points, is making sure you lead the final lap. And we've still got another 9 and a bit minutes to try and sort out in which direction the 50 championship points are going for the win. The extra point for fastest lap at the moment is going in the direction, as we say, the car that was in 13th place at the beginning of the lap, which was Fraser Riddington. Side by side for the race. Paul Sethi having another little nibble. Ben Winrow grabs the apex at Redgate corner, tries to make sure that Paul Sethi can't get the undercut, but there's a slight slide on the exit of the corner from Ben Winrow, which delays his exit slightly, but he still hangs on to the lead of the race. Winrow from Sethi, from Craig Denman, from Oliver Smith, from Paul Goldstein, then it's Stuart Bell. Caroline Everett is now starting to close in again once more in 7th place. 8th place is number 55, which is Harry Eyre. He's made good progress from 13th on the grid. At 9th place will be the car of Phil Ingham, and completing the top 10 at the moment will be Rob Good, or Rob Good I think it's actually pronounced. So up towards Coppice corner. Toyo tyres working hard. If you were watching the 420Rs earlier on, I mentioned that the minimum weight of those, including the driver, is 635 kilograms. Well, it's even lighter for these if your car is a 2014 onwards 310R or 270R. It's 615 kilos. If it's a slightly earlier 310R or 270R, it's 605 kilos. So very light and nimble cars, but slightly less power than the 420s. So through the Melbourne hairpin, back up towards the completion of what will be lap number 7 this time through. Paul Sethi looking for the lead of the race once more, but Ben Winrow still with other ideas about that. And as they now complete another lap, we've still got largely 6 cars in the lead train. Caroline Everett trying to make it 7, and Phil Ingham in the CTS Motorsport number 5 car not that far away either. Paul Sethi might have the lead here, yeah, up towards Redgate corner, just manages to sneak his way through into the lead of the race. I think that's the only position that's changed inside that top 6. So Ben Winrow relinquishes the lead, brackets for the moment, close brackets, but equally as much he's under pressure from Craig Denman behind as they head down in towards the old hairpin. You see the tail end of Ben Winrow's car wagging around. It's on the very edge of adhesion there on the brakes as he tries to settle the car, and there's a spin. That's David Tong, who is looking to try and point his car in the right direction, has done so, but that will drop him further down through the order than otherwise he was. So up towards Coppice corner, Paul Sethi, Ben Winrow, then the number 29 car of Craig Denman, Oliver Smith, Paul Goldstein, followed by Stuart Bell. Now we might have 3 wide here, are we, into the Fogarty S's? Something's got to give here, because someone's going to have to come out and lead. I think Paul Sethi decides that, in a minute, this is getting a little bit tight here. I might just back off, let Ben Winrow have the lead of the race for the moment. Equally as much, I think now Oliver Smith is up into what will be 3rd position. Craig Denman drops down into 4th place. Paul Goldstein is still there in 5th place, and Stuart Bell is under pressure from Caroline Everett now for 6th and 7th, because Caroline Everett wants in on this fun, and she's brought with her Phil Ingham and the rest of the pack thereafter. I did say as soon as they squabble, they'll all be back on each other. So squeal of tyres up at Goddard's corner. I thought I could see a yellow flag in the background, which suggests that somebody might have had a little bit of strife through the Fogarty S's. And there we do have Fraser Riddington, the man who set the fastest lap of the race, has had an off. And I think that's a spin coming out of Goddard's, possibly, that he's had the spin. The car is stationary at the side of the circuit with him trying to restart it at the moment. So hopefully that's just localised yellows and he can get the car fired up. A few track limits penalties going out as well. David Tong had one, whether that was pre-spin or post-spin at Goddard's. Side by side through the old hairpin is less than ideal, as Oliver Smith sort of leans on Craig Denman, and Craig Denman tries to not lose momentum, to fall into the clutches of the gold car of Paul Goldstein, yesterday's race winner, who's just, for me, quietly waiting there in 5th place. He will take the opportunity, I think, in the next few laps to maybe start to slip through his way past each other rather than just sit there at the moment. Very calculated driver, Paul Goldstein. That's why he's been so successful racing Caterhams in the last few years. So out of Coppice corner, this is lap number 9. Ben Winrow leading the way. Paul Sethi under pressure now for 2nd place, is he? No, he's actually got a really good run on Ben Winrow. Might retake the lead of the race here in towards the Fogarty S's. Yes, he does. Paul Sethi leads the way. Up to 2nd place is Ben Winrow, and who's 3rd? Stuart Bell, who I think was 6th at the start of this lap. Yes, he was. So Brilliant run from him, but it has allowed all of that squabbling, the top two, to just break away. So if Paul Sethi and Ben Winrow work together for the next half a lap or so, they might just, and it will be tight, have enough in hand so as to not have to worry about the chasing pack, which now includes, say, Stuart Bell up into third position. Paul Goldstein's there in fourth. Oliver Smith has dropped to fifth position. Sixth place is the number 55 car, which is Harry Eyre, who I said had gone well from 13th up to 8th. Well, he's gone even better now because he started that lap in 8th and he's going to finish it in, I think, 6th place. Caroline Everett was the big loser there. She loses 4 places and drops outside of the top 10 down to 11th place at the wheel of the number 9 car. She's now at the tail end of the train and is trying to pick up a place on Rob Good if she can. 3.5 minutes remaining. The fastest lap of the race, I think, is still with Fraser Riddington, who has not come back through, I don't think. And we're now starting to see the first of the track limits warnings coming out, so it does look as though there is a track limit warning. There is Simon Sharrock, I think that is. Yes, it is. Yeah, that's Simon Sharrock, who's been racing Caterhams for a few years now. He is out of the race on the run out of the Melbourne hairpin and will take no further part in the race. And of course, finishing results from this race give us the grid for the final race of the weekend as well. So Simon will be off the back of the grid for that one, or towards the tail end of the field. So the lead train, it's really just 2 cars at the moment, isn't it? They've broken the toe on those behind as Ben Winrow goes for the lead of the race again, does he? I think they are working together. I think Ben Winrow and Paul Sethi are working together here to try and maintain that little bit of a gap they've got between themselves and the pack of cars behind, which was exactly what they needed to do to try and maintain that gap. Winrow leads, Sethi in 2nd place. Paul Goldstein now up into 3rd. I did say he was just waiting patiently there. He might not quite be up into 3rd place. No, he's not, because Stuart Bell has had a better run coming out of the Melbourne hairpin. So Stuart Bell still there in 3rd place. The gold car number 150 of Paul Goldstein in 4th place. Stuart Bell runs a little bit wide coming out of Goddard's corner. The front two I still think are working together. 2 minutes to go. They're on their penultimate lap. Sethi picks up the toe. Looks to try and pick up the lead of the race but can't do so. So it's still Ben Winrow from Paul Sethi, Stuart Hall from Paul Goldstein, Oliver Smith from Harry Eyre, I think it is, the top 6 at the moment, as we are side by side pretty much for the lead of the race through the first part of the Craner curves. They're back to being in single file order by the old hairpin, and from the front two, having had a little mini breakaway, all of a sudden here comes the cavalry. Everybody has arrived and we're not quite at a 5-car train for the lead, but it will be by probably the time we get down to the Fogarty S's. Ben Winrow still hanging on to the leader ace again, very quick in towards McLean's corner, but that compromises his exit speed and allows Paul Sethi to work his way up the inside, heading in towards Goddard's corner. They bounce off the curb, Paul Sethi does at least, but Ben Winrow is still desperate to try and hang on to the lead, and watch out for Paul Goldstein. We're nearly 2 and 3 wide. Paul Goldstein trying to weave his way through and past Paul Sethi. I think it might still be Ben Winrow that leads when they get towards the Fogarty S's, but who's going to come out in second? It's going to be Paul Goldstein that picks up the lead. I did say wait patiently, and I thought he'd be the man to watch. And yeah, Paul Goldstein has picked up the lead of the race. He's just sat there where he wanted to be, in that lead battle for all of the period of time. And he wasn't worried whether he was 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th. As long as he was in the lead pack, he knew he'd be in a good position to pick up the places. And here he comes onto what is now the last lap of the race, with a small amount of damage. He's lost a left rear wheel arch, but that's not unfamiliar territory in Caterham racing. He is leading the way. So Paul Goldstein starts the final lap in the lead of the race. Ben Winrow under pressure for 2nd place with Paul Sethi in the green car, looking to try and slipstream his way past. And is Paul going to do it by the time they get towards Redgate corner? No, he can't. Who's going to be in 4th when we get there? Harry Eyre goes wheel to wheel with Stuart Bell. Harry Eyre, I think, is just going to hang on to 4th place. Stuart Bell's there in 5th, and I think it's Oliver Smith that completes the top 6, but you can throw a blanket over them further back in the background of the shot, because more and more cars want in on the fun and the squabble for places towards the tail end of the top 6 as they head into and out of the old hairpin. Clock has ticked to 0. We are on the last lap of the race. Who's going to pick up the 50 championship points for the win? We will have to wait and see. A little bit of flapping bodywork on the car of James Hall there. He, I think, is still on course to win the 270s. And through the gravel trap, that's Oliver Smith through the gravel trap at the exit of McLean's corner. He was inside the top 6 at the beginning of this lap. He's going to drop outside of the top 10 by the end of it, and that sort of split the pack a little bit and allowed the top 3 to rather escape. Stuart Bell is the man in 4th place, but it's Paul Goldstein from Ben Winrow from Paul Sethi. And who's going to come out in 4th? It might be Harry Eyre that takes 4th place. Yes, it is. Harry Eyre is 4th at the moment from Stuart Bell. And Tim Steele, who finished 6th in the championship but only 15th in the race yesterday, is now knocking on the door of a top 6 as well. So through the Melbourne hairpin for the final time. Harry Eyre desperate to try and hang on to 4th place, but the leading trio heading up towards Goddard's for the final time, and it looks as though Paul Goldstein is going to make it 2 out of 2 in the opening round of the Macmillan 7 Racing UK Championship. He turns his way out of Goddard's towards the checkered flag. Perfect weekend for Paul Goldstein, clapping his hands as he comes over the start-finish line. He claims the win, perfectly timed his progress from 6th to 1st place. Ben Winrow in 2nd place, with Paul Sethi there in 3rd place. 4th place was Harry Eyre, who did hold off Stuart Bell towards the checkered flag. And completing the top 6 from what was 15th on the grid was Tim Steele. Up towards the checkered flag will also come car number 16, which is going to be James Hall. He will pick up top honours in the 270R category, which he has led for a good chunk of this race, and through he comes to claim a win in the 270 category, and that also repeats what he did yesterday, which was picking up maximum points in the 270 category. So a few more cars still to take the checkered flag, I believe, not least of which will be Neville Sykes to take the checkered flag, who finishes in 19th place, and also Amanda Anderson, who will complete the top 20. But for Paul Goldstein, might not have got the fastest lap in this one like he did yesterday, but his progress to time where he needed to be at any one point was absolutely exceptional. And as I said earlier on in the race, I think he was just happy sitting there in 3rd, and when he dropped to 5th and dropped to 6th, he didn't panic. He's raced Caterhams long enough to know all you need to do is be in that lead pack. If you're in the tow, you can position yourself correctly at the right time, and just used all of that experience to end up where he wanted to be, at the front, and another winner's trophy. Let's confirm some results for you then following the 2nd round of the championship. Paul Goldstein claims the win from Ben Winrow in 2nd place, and completing the podium is Paul Sethi. Harry Eyre made good progress from further down the grid to finish in 4th place, and it was Stuart Bell in 5th, with Tim Steele completing the top 6. In 7th place it was Craig Denman. 8th place saw the number 5 car Phil Ingram come home. Then it was Rob Good and Caroline Everett that completed the top 10. As we move outside of the top 10, Ian Lancaster finished in 11th place. Stephen Anderson, remember, he started off the back of the grid, came through to finish in 12th place, and after the gravelly moment with a lap or 2 to go, Oliver Smith dropped out of the top 6 and finishes in 13th position. 14th place went the way of Scott Parker. 15th place was John Styring. 16th place is the number 85 car of Colin Loughlin. 19th place was Michael Curley. In 17th place. In 18th place it was James Hall. He scooped up top honours in the 270R class. Neville Sykes was next up, who was 2nd home in the 270s, and Amanda Anderson completed the top 20. And then you can see any other cars that finished outside of the top 20, including a couple of cars that sadly did not make the finish, one of which was Simon Sharrock, and the other car set the fastest lap, but that's not much of a consolation for Fraser Riddington, as his car also retired. And that's it for the 310 and 270Rs. We will see them back out later on. That'll be around about 5:05 this evening that we see those back out, but we will be bringing you the final race, the 3rd round of the championship for the 420Rs, and that will be just before 3:30 this afternoon. So please join us for that one. And until then, from Donington Park, we'll all say goodbye.